Hi, I'm Kristen with an E, and this is Talk with Kristen with an E, a place to slow down, be honest without having all the answers, and feel a little less alone together. Let's talk it out. Everybody, welcome back. If you heard the podcast episode where Alexis and I were talking about our 2025 books and books we were looking forward to in 2026, you probably heard us say a couple times about how we needed to have an entire episode about Kristin Hannah. Well, wait no longer. Here we are, ready to talk about Kristin Hannah. But before we dive in, let's say hello to my guest. Hello, Alexis.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Welcome back. It is always so good to have you here, especially today because you and I have talked about Kristin Hannah for several years now, and I think that it is time that we give her the attention that is due and dive into all the things Kristin Hannah today. So, before we do that though, for any of you listening who don't know Kristin Hannah, let me tell you a bit about Kristin Hannah because she's amazing. She's the award-winning and best-selling author of more than 20 novels, including international blockbuster The Nightingale, which was named Goodreads' Best Historical Fiction Novel for 2015 and won the coveted People's Choice Award for Best Fiction in that same year. Additionally, it was a selection of the Reese Witherspoon Book Club in 2023. It was named a Best Book of the Year by Amazon, iTunes, BuzzFeed, The Wall Street Journal, Paste, and The Week. In 2018, The Great Alone became an instant New York Times #1 bestseller, and it goes on and on about the highlights of her books. But really, we don't need to get that all from her site because Alexis and I are going to tell you all about it. So, Alexis, if we can start with you, set up and let us know, when was it that you were first introduced to Kristin Hannah? How did you discover her? Give us kind of the vision of where you were when you found her or when she found you.
Yeah, so it might have only been, it was either 2022 or 2023, maybe even 2021, but basically when we had moved here and I knew I needed to start walking, so I joined a gym and I started listening to audiobooks, but then the next year I was like, "Oh, I have my old Kindle from 2014. It's so old. It's still got buttons that you can do, and
I still have
use it
mine
occasionally."
somewhere too.
So I was like, I'm gonna do Kindle Unlimited, and then I happened to find the Night Road on there,
Oh,
and so I read it, and I had been maybe in a book slump that year, but either way, I was at a point where I just needed something really, really good to read. I read it through the night. I did not sleep. And I bawled my eyes out. Bawled. Just it was the saddest and best book I've read, and it instantly became my #1 favorite book.
can you remind me
Um,
what that one's about, if you
yeah,
remember?
so
Okay.
there's a couple of friends that they're like siblings and friends, and they get in a car accident. The daughter is dating the friend is dating the brother, and the sister dies, and it's kind of a whole, she's tried for manslaughter, but she's pregnant with the brother's child, and it is like a whole, it's quite the story.
Yeah, there's a
But
lot.
as a mother, yeah, as a mother, her baby being taken from her while I think it's taken from her while she's in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And most people probably would find it super sad. In fact, when I describe Kristin Hannah, she will literally pull you into the depths of despair, and then she recovers, except for one book. And we'll get to that book.
Yes.
And then after that, after I read that, I was like, oh my word, I'm going to just read all of her books. So then I read The Great Alone, and then I read Winter Garden. And we can do all the ratings, but
Yeah, right now it's just how you met her and where you were in life.
yeah, and that's kind of how it is. And I don't read all of them because they're like little treats. So when I'm in a book funk is when I pull out a Kristin Hannah book.
I met Kristin Hannah, not in real life. I've never met her in real life, but I found her earlier than you did. I started reading her books. I'm trying to see if I can see the date on this one. I believe Firefly Lane was the first one that I read, and I want to say it was around 2009, maybe between 2009 and 2010 was really when I got pulled into my Kristin Hannah phase. And it was a lot of her older books, True Colors, A Mystic Lake, Angel Falls. Again, books that most people have never heard of before. Like you mentioned, Night Road. Like it was kind of OG Kristin Hannah fans will remember them because it was like her original works. And I remember I wanted to read them all. And back then there was a site, it may still exist, I don't know. It was paperbackswap.com. And what you would do is you would list books that you were trading and other people would list books and you could kind of go through and like shop for other people's books and you would claim it and then you would have to use like a credit. So you would use a credit, you get the book for free, and then the person would ship it to you. And the person shipping had to pay like the media mail costs or whatever, but you would get a credit for every book you would sell on the site. It's hard to explain, but I promise it worked out so well because you were only out the shipping of media mail. And back then it really wasn't that expensive to pay for it.
Right.
So I did a lot of my Kristin Hannah books that way, is because I would, post all the books I was getting rid of and, get credits for new books. Then I'd get the Kristin Hannah books. And then a lady that I was working with, Rhonda, she loved them too. So sometimes we'd trade and swap books. So I was reading a lot of Kristin Hannah back then. And then I think I started reading other things. I went a little bit different direction and then really came back again when probably The Four Winds came out then. I think that was 2021. I don't know. The times are
I
all
think it's
kind of fuzzy.
2021.
Was that it?
So I think that's when it came out. Yeah, it was 2021 when, because then
Okay.
I was looking at it the other day. I think that is, this doesn't have the date on it. All
Yeah.
things. I don't have the date on this one, but that tracks for this because it
Yes.
was before The Women, and The Women was 2023.
Yep.
2021 makes sense.
Yep, so I just
So
I just went back and looked at my Goodreads and yes, I read Angel Falls and then there was like a whole gap and then The Four Winds, The Women, The Nightingale, and then I started getting reading her stuff again. So yeah. So, we talked about kind of when we met her, but when did you realize that Kristen Hannah was kind of like a phenomenon and people were very very distinct in which books they were favorite?
I think what was recommended to me, and I realize this now that I'm actually, after I thought about this for a while, this just popped in. So I guess probably I was actually introduced to her in 2020. Somebody recommended reading The Nightingale when we moved across the country as an audiobook book.
Mhm.
I did purchase it, but I was so bored the first hour. I turned it off, and I know that's blasphemy because everybody loves The Nightingale, but I
We'll
was.
get into it.
And so, but it really was, I think it was when The Four Winds came out. Like I was kind of starting to follow book groups on Facebook because I was looking for used books, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is so good." And I purchased it, but of course it sat on my Kindle until last year. So you know how that goes.
Yes, I do know how that
The
goes.
it was probably 2021, 2022 that it was. But regardless, just from the books that I had read by that point, she was just a favorite author. And I think we talk about this a lot, but the reason that I love her is I'm at a place in my life where the rom-coms that are like young 20s, unmarried, like I like them, don't get me wrong, but I'm almost 40. I have teenage kids. That is not where I'm at in my life. And while I could used to relate to that, that is not what I want to relate to now. And I feel like her audience, she just writes to a more mature audience. And that's probably why certain books are more popular than other books. And I just finished one of her books this week, and as I immediately started reading this, I'm just thinking there's just so much more like a rich depth to maturity and experience in life that you do have when you're 40 versus when you're 22, you know? And so I really think that is why she may speak to an older audience more than a younger audience with the majority of her books, but that's just a hypothesis that I have.
I think a lot of her books have more substance. They go more in depth, and I don't want to say it's harder to read because I absolutely love it, but you're right, it's definitely different than a rom-com or a lighter read because there is so much more. And I've said that to people too, that she basically tears you apart, breaks you into pieces, and then builds you back. Like most of Kristen Hannah's, especially her newer books, I cry at least at some point in all of her new books because they are so emotional, heart tugging or whatever. Like they really make you
Oh,
feel
yeah.
something. And that's why I love them so much. Can you give if you want to rank them all, that's fine. I think I did mine like top five or so, but like, what are your favorite Kristen Hannah books?
Hands down, The Four Winds and Night Road. Those tie for number 1. 2 would probably be The Great Alone. And then 3, I have a tie for Magic Hour and Angel Falls. And I don't know if you've read Magic Hour, but it is so unique. I don't think I've ever like heard a story from that perspective. Angel Falls is a little more, I think probably there's more instances of that, but
Yeah.
they could rate there. Um I could tell you my worst, but we can wait for that if you want.
Yeah, we're just talking best right now. So I would say my top five are The Four Winds, for sure, completely. The Four Winds, The Great Alone. This is where it becomes a toss up because I used to say The Winter Garden was my favorite book of all time for a very long time. At this point, it's been so long since I've read it that I can't actually remember what it's about. But let's put Winter Garden at three, The Women at number four, and then number five. mm, Again, I don't know if I'm leaning because of recency bias and what I've read more recently than what I actually really loved. It would probably be Firefly Lane or Nightingale. I say Nightingale because it's the one read more recently, but I say Firefly Lane because I remember when it came first out, I loved it a whole lot until Winter Garden came out, and then Winter Garden replaced my favorite then. So that's kind of where mine is. But I have some theories on why people's favorites are their favorites too. Because, and this is why I asked, why it was so important that I asked you at the beginning when you found Kristen Hannah, because there's kind of like different camps of Kristen Hannah fans, and it depends on when you started reading. So there's like the old Kristen Hannah fans, like those that found her before 2015, and they would often say their favorites would be, or the ones that brought them in, introduced them the most, or be Winter Garden, Between Sisters, Distant Shore, and Comfort and Joy. And those are kind of the top four from that time period. And then the new wave, which is more your 2015 to kind of present day, those are the ones that are the Nightingale, the Great Alone, the Four Winds, the Women, some of her more recent things. And
Yeah.
my theory is, which I think may have some truth behind it, we may get into it a little bit more later, is that with book talk and social media kind of sharing a lot of books. I mean, you even mentioned you joined a Facebook group and the book was recommended to you. I think that's where some of the books became more popular. And we have to keep in mind that just because they're popular doesn't always mean that they're the best books. Now, granted, I've never read a Kristen Hannah book I didn't like, but anyway, thoughts on that before I just keep rambling and bore you with statistics.
I would agree with that. And I'm actually like currently going through her older catalog. I'm going through her older catalog, but what still remains to me is even those older books are still fantastic. And in some ways, her newer books, there are multiple of them I don't like. And I think it's because it might have been the time period that she is writing about, which I guess that happens. But some of her older works are just fantastic.
Yeah, and they were different too. Like when she was writing the older books, there was still family stuff. I think it may have leaned a little bit more romance, not necessarily like the romance we regularly speak of, but it wasn't as deep in the historical genre as it is now with some of her newer books. But yes, she's a fantastic writer, and even with her older stuff, you could still tell then that she was a fantastic writer.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm noticing just with Magic Hour and Angel
Mhm.
Falls, and they're just really well done. And they're not even stories that I would ever be interested in, but because her character development in them is just fantastic, I think.
Well, and that's what we see in so many of all of her books, but I think that's a lot in her more recent books too. The character development. Like, it's so often I will read a book, and even if I really loved the book and remember the book, I will forget characters' names like almost
Oh, yeah.
immediately. And I can still tell you characters, like when I talk about the women and talk about how terrible it was for Frankie and like everything she had to go through, like I still remember how I felt with that book and, with Four Winds. Anyway,
I
I
know.
get myself pulled too back in thinking about just the books. Okay, so do you want to talk about any of your lesser favorite ones?
Yeah, so my least favorite is Winter Garden and Nightingale.
Right.
Nightingale ranks my absolute lowest for
Okay.
ones that I've read of her. And Winter Garden, I will say this. It is a the ending is fabulous, but man, it was such a slog for me to get through the
I'm
first
gonna
part
have to
of
go
it.
back and read it then and see if I still love it now.
It's the one I don't remember if you remember it, but it's the sisters that their mother was in Russia. I believe it's during the Bolshevik Revolution. I might be wrong on that time period, but basically her town starved and she was Russian, but she never spoke of these things. It's kind of, I don't know. There's a family dynamic there that's probably very relatable, and the end was so good, but I didn't love it. I probably it's probably because I had read it after The Great Alone and
Yeah.
Night Road.
Reading, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can dislike that book. I will look past that.
But Nightingale seriously ranks the lowest, and the reason I think this is because World War II, as we've talked about in other book episodes, there are so many World War II books. And I think I've brought this up in the past, but from the time I was in high school, actually younger, I think somebody gave me a book to read on World War II on the Holocaust when I was maybe upper elementary, and I had an obsession over it. I even did a paper to go to Washington, D.C. all on my own. And I focused so much on World War II. So then I have read a lot, but then that's all I read for fiction for years. And I just feel like there's just better World War II fiction books, if that makes sense.
It does, because that book was disappointing for me, and part of it, I think, was because my expectations, like, because so many people were like, "Oh, The Nightingale. Oh, I love The Nightingale. Oh, The Nightingale's my favorite book of all time." Like, people raved about this book like it was the best book ever. So, of course, I went in with these, like, high expectations, like, "Oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
love Kristin Hannah. If everybody's saying this is the best book ever, then it must be the best book ever." And I started reading it, and it was so slow at first. And like, I love the concept of it. And I know we're not going into a lot of like the plots on these books, but if you're listening to this episode, it's either because you love Kristen Hannah and you already know what we're talking about, or if you don't and you're going to read it, I don't want to spoil any of the books for you. But
Right.
the kind of like the plot, like the premise of it was good. Like, I really liked it. I liked how the sisters were so different. I liked seeing how they were responding to different things, but it was just like, I'm like, how is this people's favorite book? Like, this is not
Well, I
a
think we
favorite
read
book.
this to you and
We
I
did. We
read
were
this
very
together
close around the
with
same time.
Kelly. And
Oh,
I don't
right.
it wasn't terrible. I've read worse books, but I'm just like thinking about like the Lilac Girls was
Oh,
definitely way
oh
better.
my gosh.
I
That
you
book
know
was
what I mean?
amazing. And a similar, I
So
mean, the different storylines, you're right, different, similar concept. But yes, that book, oh, that one broke me.
so I don't like to dog Chris and Hannah, but that definitely I don't know. What kills me about it is it's like the one becoming a movie, and I don't know, I just think there's so many other ones.
So Homefront is supposed to be a movie now, too. No, not Homefront.
Oh,
The
well.
Great Alone is supposed to be a movie too.
Oh,
It just got picked up, but I did see that The Great Alone did get movie rights. So we will see. But yeah, Great Alone.
I know you love that one, but The Great Alone has like way too many trigger warnings for my life growing up. I
Okay.
don't love it, but it's well written. Well, there's just so much with the violence, or you know what I mean, like the domestic violence. It's just too much. So that is one that I kind of struggled with, but I still it's so well done. And I don't know. I just her portrayal of Alaska was amazing. So
Yes, oh, that's right, it was Alaska. Alaska. I loved it. You're right, there are some trigger warnings and there was some domestic violence, but the relationships that were created and
mhm.
how well it was written and how, like, it went over so many years, like, again,
It was good.
ripped me
It
apart.
was good.
But because of that topic that she covers in it, I can see why that doesn't necessarily get the same attention that the Nightingale does because everybody loves, a World War II story. Fewer people love stories about husbands beating their wives. And I mean it. Like, it is a terrible, terrible topic. But how it was written and how you felt for the characters was just monumental.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, her character development and the feeling in that book was how I felt about Night Road.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good, but it was hard.
The other one I struggle with, and I mentioned this one in our last book episode, was Homefront. I didn't like that one. I mean, again, I said earlier, like, I've never met a Kristen Hannah book I didn't like. And because it's Kristen Hannah, I liked the writing, but I did not like that book at all. And I felt like there wasn't as much character development. I felt that there was a lot of immaturity in that marriage. And again, it's possible it's because I listened to it instead of reading it that it was harder for me because the narrator was not very good. The child in the book felt very whiny all the time, and I don't think that helped the immaturity of the marriage and the characters that I was already feeling from the book. So I would put The Home Front probably at the bottom of every Kristen Hannah book I've ever read.
And that's fair. I will tell you, I think there's a lot better military books written, especially if you want military like romance. When I read that, it wasn't necessarily memorable because I was reading it with a couple other military romances, but I did enjoy it for that year. It was kind of like my one Kristen Hannah book that I read that year. So I can see that. It's definitely probably it does rank lower as far as memorable. Like I don't remember a whole lot of details about it if I'm thinking about that one.
Yeah. Well, even other, military books she's written, The Women was very well done. Now, I will tell you, The Women is a book that I loved, but again, didn't quite meet my expectations based on what everybody else was saying. And again, it was book talk and, people, well, for me, Bookstagram, because I don't do the TikTok, but on Book Talk and Bookstagram, people raving about The Women and how, oh, it was so, they cried so much, this, that, and whatever. So I kept waiting for like something crazy. I did cry a little. There were a few parts, but it was not the huge thing that I thought it was going to be. So I fully admit that this is a me thing, that I take what people say and in my head kind of make it bigger than it is, and then I'm let down. But it was just like, I loved it. I still think I gave it 4 or 5 stars, but I feel like that was kind of a letdown. This may just be a personal opinion, but I think the same people who love The Nightingale and raved about it being so wonderful are some of the same people who thought The Women was better than I thought it was, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And ironically, I was looking forward to that book when it came out. I bought it. I actually pre-ordered it because it was a Kristen Hannah book. I still have not read it because I know I haven't read it. It just hasn't hit my list. There's been other ones that I've wanted to read before it.
Yeah.
And so last year I was gonna read that, and then I read The Four Winds and I have no regrets.
Oh,
So
yes. Four Winds. My favorite book ever. I love that book so much. And it's funny because, and I've said this before, but if you haven't heard me say it, I knew very little about the Dust Bowl ever. And I don't know if it's because I grew up on the East Coast or went to private school. I don't remember even really learning about the Dust Bowl that much when I was in school. And so the Four Winds I felt was like my entryway into learning about the Dust Bowl. And I was so fascinated by it. And my friend Laura said that, well, if if you like the Four Winds, you should probably go watch Ken Burns' PBS special on the Dust Bowl. And I did. And it was amazing too. And now I love the Dust Bowl. I mean, I don't love the Dust Bowl. Like, I don't love that it happened and all those people had to go through and how poorly the government handled the whole thing. But in general, it's a time period that doesn't get enough attention. And so the fact that Kristen Hannah wrote about this kind of
The mhm.
I don't say it's a
Yes.
minor event, but something that's not well written about in literature. I love that.
Yeah, and okay, so my great-grandparents like came here because of the Dust Bowl.
Oh,
Actually,
wow.
we've had a lot of farmers that have come here, like generational farms. And so I've kind of been familiar with that, but she did such a good job of it. I feel like it really threw me further into knowing and doing it. But yeah, Four Winds. You and I read that together, and I if we want to delve more into it, this is the book that it kills me, but it's so good.
Well, and it's the book that I get disappointed when people don't love it as much as I do. So I read it when it first came out and read it with an old book club that I was in. Because whenever I get a chance to pick a book, like I'm going to pick a Kristen Hannah book, right? And so loved the book then. So then in my new current book club, last year's theme, we were all supposed to provide our favorite book and so that we could kind of share it with the group and everybody read it. So again, what's my favorite book? Easy. Kristen Hannah's The Four Winds or a Sophie Kinsella book. But like for book club, it has to be Kristen Hannah, The Four Winds. And of course, I love the book, right? Why wouldn't anybody else love the book? And so my book club discussed the book and they're like, yeah, I mean, it was okay. Yeah, I mean, I gave it a 3. I gave it a 4. I'm like, it's a 5-star book, people. Like, what are you
It's
doing?
5.
But like everybody has their preferences. And throughout the year, as we all read everybody else's favorite books, I didn't love some of their favorite books either. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But part of me is kind of like, how can you not love it? Like, this is a masterpiece. But I'm sure that's how
Really
people
was,
feel
and
when I say I don't like the Nightingale that much. So,
but man, The Four Winds, I think the thing that kills me about that book is she broke you down, broke you down, broke you down, and it was like, "Can we get any more broken?" But there was no building up, but it worked. It worked
yeah.
so well, and
Yeah.
I'm just that book, I still think about that book a lot.
Oh,
A
I
lot.
can I can, like, picture things in in my brain because, like, I think I did the audio version. I've done both the audio and I've read it, and I usually only use, like, library and free. I own The Four Winds not only on my Kindle, but I also have the hard copy. So I own this in 2 versions. I have listened to the audiobook, Julia Whalen. Oh my gosh, if you want your heart to be broken even more, you have Julia Whalen read that book to you. And I have read it. And I can see, like, when I read, whether I'm listening or reading, I like see it like as a movie in my head. If I close my eyes, I can still picture her. I can picture what I've seen the street scene in California when they're there. I can see her waiting in line.
Oh, yeah.
I can see the little camps. I can see her best friend. I can see it all in my head. And like, why this one hasn't gotten picked up for a movie, I don't know. Like, anybody listening who has powers that be in the movie industry, The Four Winds needs to be a movie. Make this happen.
I just think about when her brother was in the hospital. There's dirt everywhere, piles of
Yes.
dirt, and these
Yes.
people are just they can't breathe. And I just think about their houses just being filled with piles of dirt, and I'm just it is hard to fathom, but if you look back at pictures, it really was like that. I
Yes.
just oh, I know. Every time I see somebody say this was the worst book they read, I'm always like, "Oh,
I'm
you
like,
people. It's so good."
unfriend, unfriend. She's dead to me. Not really, but it is. It's so
No,
good.
but yeah.
I think that what I have kind of theorized in my mind is there's different camps, and depending on which camp you're in, really kind of does determine which book you love most. There's the different camps are kind of like the old, like the OG Kristen Hannah ones, and they love The Winter Garden, Between Sisters, Distant Shores, Angel Falls, Magic, like all those old books. They love and remember those. Then you've got your epic historical fiction lovers, and these are the ones that lean more towards the Nightingale, Four Winds, the women. Sometimes, as we've even seen, there's ones that they love more than another, but they love the big stakes, the history, the resilience narratives. Then you have the emotion first readers. These are often the ones that are on Book Talk. They love the immediate emotional payoff. They may struggle with some of the lower or subtler books, kind of the ones that go deeper, have more, which is why these ones are maybe some of the similar ones that lean towards like Firefly Lane. While it's an older one, because it came into a Netflix show and they see it as a show. So I think sometimes your favorite says more about you, the person, than it does the book. Because, like you said, like we all lean different ways. So it really kind of depends on what kind of person you are and what you're looking for. And that's the great thing is that there's kind of a Kristin Hannah book for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back to my favorites of hers, and I have a historical fiction, but also her like really emotional one. Like Night Road is it's an emotional, character-driven like life situation, and I think I tend to read both, so it makes sense that it really is about the person and what they can relate to.
Well, and I think it does, and it can change too. Like, what you loved before may not be something you love now. And it's always good to try different things too and see, maybe something is out there and that maybe the best, maybe the best Kristen Hannah book isn't the best one. It's the one that you found at a certain time in your life that really meant the most to you of where you are or what you were feeling at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Well, anything else, Alexis? Any final thoughts or anything we missed that you really wanted to say about Kristen Hannah?
No, I mean, can we go out saying that The Nightingale is her worst book? I mean, I shouldn't say that.
No, because the home front was pretty bad too.
Okay, Homefront and Nightingale are her worst books. If you like emotional stories, read Night Road and Four Winds. You have to read Four Winds just to even like get some perspective on that time in history. You might not love it, and that's okay, but you should read it.
Yes, you should read it. The Four Winds, 100%, and The Great Alone. But yes, let's if you can get past trigger warnings, read The Great Alone too. All right, Alexis. Well, this has been wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending this time with me. I hope this conversation made you feel a little less alone. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk with you soon.